here. How are we doing tonight? Does anyone want to share an open hack experience or share how we're feeling about React or just in general? Where are we at on this lovely Wednesday, halfway?
Open. I had a meeting with Jason, and he showed me something in the network tab of the council that is life-changing for me. So I'm feeling good about that. And I'm here. I'm going to be in the background because I'm at a graduation party for my little cousins.
No problem. Thanks for the heads up. Yeah, network tab, super helpful. Seeing what the browser is sending back and forth, kind of understanding what that's doing, very helpful tool there. What else? How are we feeling about React? Are we feeling, I know we just kind of had the intro to it yesterday, or I'm sorry, on Monday, but how are we feeling overall? How are we feeling? We're 50% into the program.
I've been reading some of it, so I'm ready to learn it.
Awesome. Anyone else want to chime in? Several of you were at Open Hack. Do any of you want to share an experience or someone you met or?
Yeah, we met a ton of people and we were networking, making sure that we collect numbers and stuff. Joking. But yeah, we did a bit of networking, and it's always good to meet up with like-minded people and just explain certain problems that you probably facing at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's so easy to be going through this program and feel like you're in a bubble, right? And like the only people you have to talk to are other instructors or your fellow classmates, right? So it's somewhat validating to be able to get out and be like, well, we learned this term where, we're learning how to use functions in JavaScript, and everyone's like, oh, functions, yeah, that's totally a thing, So yeah. I think it's super helpful to hear that validation. Anything else before we dive back into React concepts? Any concerns, any places where we're stuck on past homework? Do we want to do a quick detour on anything, any concepts that we're struggling with before we dive into React? Any free code camp exercises? We just want to dive right in?
Can you ask us again tomorrow? That way, if we'll have it prepared and ready if there are questions that we have.
Absolutely, yeah. And feel free to do that at any time, even if I forget to ask that. If you're like, ooh, there's this one little thing I'm stuck on and it's been bugging me. We want to make sure that we get those concepts solidified because we are going to start using them over and over again in React, in our backend code and all of that stuff. So the good news is, other than a little bit of SQL, once we get through React, there is no new syntax to learn. So all of the JavaScript concepts and syntax and practice typing out those lines of code, all of that is going to apply in Node. So other than React and a little bit of SQL, we're running out of new syntax for you guys. So now it's just a matter of getting comfortable with it. And the only way to do that, no matter how many homework assignments we have, no matter how many resources we send your way, it's just a matter of practice, right? And so that's the main point of the homeworks, is just to practice with it and get familiar with it. Don't panic if it's not 100% working. Don't panic if it's not all styled. It's just a matter of practicing and getting more comfortable with that syntax. Okay. We are going to dive in unless anyone has any other comments. Okay, so goal today is to finish going through React concepts and start working on our to-do app. So our to-do list is going to just be a basic way of creating a React app, having that data update and going through that whole flow. But first, we've got some more React concepts to get through. And what we're going to do is we're going to spin up a whole new project. So we're going to get more practice in the terminal. We're going to create a React app. Again, none of these concepts, when we're playing around with them, are going to be turned in and for homework. So if you feel like you learn better by just watching, don't feel like you need to keep up, that's completely fine. Just take notes as we're going. If you are someone who wants to get the practice and follow along, that's also completely fine. But as we're going through these concepts, we really want to expose you to the concept first before we jump right into a project that is using that, right? So when we get to the to-do app, that will be turned in for homework, but if you want to just follow along or just go along for the ride and take notes as you're going, whatever, that is completely fine. So let's get started with our React setup first. So I'm going to open the terminal. And first things first, I want to know where I'm at. So I'm going to PWD, and it says I'm in users hack upstate. PWD, print working directory, right? What folder are we in right now in the terminal? So I'm in hack upstate. That's great, but I need to know what are my options. So I'm going to ls to list all of my files, and I'm going to see desktop is where I want to be headed. So I'm going to cd to my desktop. And if we just type in DE and hit tab, it's going to auto-complete it for us and drop in desktop. Now I'm going to ls on my desktop, and I want to get into my C3 my code. Now remember, if any of your folder names have a space in them, you're going to have to use that slash beneath the delete key before the space character so it knows, hey, this is actually part of the file path that we're going for. So I'm going to cd into my C3 my code. And I'm going to ls again, and I'm going to get all of my weeks out. So I'm going to cd into week 12. Christy, I see you. I'm coming for you in 1 second. And then I'm going to ls, and I'm going to see, hey, I have a day 1, but I really want to be in my day 3, right? So I'm going to mkdir make directory for day 3. But just because I made it doesn't mean that I moved into it. I didn't change into that folder. So what I'm going to do is cd into day 3. And now that I'm in there, I can do my create React app. So npx create React app. And I'm going to call it playground again, right? Because we're just getting a place set up for React so that we can work with this project. Now, I know you may say, hey, we did all of this stuff on Monday. Can we just use that again? And the answer is yes, but you're going to be creating React app a lot, and getting that practice of clearing out the files and having a blank starter space is good practice to get. So I'm going to go ahead and run that, and it should go through and says it's going to take a couple minutes, and then when it's done, we'll move on to the next step. Christy, go ahead with your question.
Let me see. I'm gonna share my screen real quick.
Oh, hold on.
Oh,
Okay,
wait.
go for it.
So mine says something else. Like mine says, here it is. When I opened up my terminal, this is what I opened up to. So I wasn't able to.
Okay, click into that and just hit Command N. And check your other monitor. Did that open a new terminal window? Oh, there you go.
Oh, so do I close this?
Yeah.
Do I wanna?
Yes.
Okay.
And now you've got a clean slate and can go from there.
So what is Command N?
Just open a new terminal window.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now I need your code. Now I need what you put back up.
Yeah,
So-
I'm gonna screenshot my terminal and share it in live stream.
Is there a restriction with capitalization?
There is on React apps. React apps, no capitalization and no spaces.
Camel case.
Camel case, well, you can't camel case because there are no capital letters allowed in React app names. So you
Oh.
have to do dashes instead.
Okay.
And I just shared a screenshot of my terminal. So if you are trying to follow along, that's in live stream. I will share my screen again. In case you want to work through it there. We have. Where do my polls go? Oh, here they are. We've got 9 people in and 14 people in class. So 10 is the magic number.
Did you say there's no capital letters allowed in React?
React app names.
Oh, okay.
Should we start it?
Yes. Next step after you get through these are going to be CDing into whatever the name of your React app is. And then finally, you can npm start or npm run start. They do the same thing. And you should get the spinning logo going on here. So let me just move this over to the side. And I'm going to stop mine.
Hey Max,
Yeah,
hey, are you gonna like post this in the chat or something?
it's already in live stream.
Okay. So I'm right at the part where finishing out at week. We're all week 3, week 7, blah blah blah. Just all the different files. We're pretty much just copying every exact thing that we see on the screen, right?
Not necessarily. Do you already have a week 12 folder?
Pretty sure I do. Let me check. Week 12 folder, I do.
Okay, so you're going to CD into week 12.
Okay.
And then you're going to make the directory for day 3. So the goal of following along with me is not just so you have the steps done. You really need to get to the point of, hey, every step that I'm doing here, I understand what that command is doing. So if at any point you see this and you're like, why did he ls here? Well, I needed to see what the list of my options were. I needed to see what I could go into now that I was in my desktop. Can I skip this ls step? Absolutely, I can. If I know the name of the folder that I want to get to is C3 my code here, I can just skip that ls step. So the important thing is that every time you see one of these % signs, that means I am running another command, right? So understanding command by command why we're running those commands and what those commands are doing are way more important than, hey, I just, got my React app set up. Danielle, go ahead.
Okay, so I did the mkdir make directory,
Yep.
but when I typed in day 3, it said that it couldn't make the directory for a day 3.
Go ahead and share your screen. Did you have a space in day 3?
No.
Okay, then go ahead and share your screen.
I just had put it as DAY3.
Okay, so it's got to be mkdir space day 3.
Okay, so include it with the mkdir. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Zach, you're up next.
Okay, so let me see here. So the npx create React app installs React.
It kind of. Create React app is a special program that is setting you up. Yes, the answer is yes. The more that I think about it, yes. Create React app is a program set up to not only install React for you, but also to get all of those files created and to get you set up with something called Webpack, which is like the server that's running in the background. So it is installing React among a couple other things, and then going in and creating all of the files that you would need in a React app.
Okay, and then we have to name it, and we've just been naming it Playground.
Yes, yeah, but you could name that anything. You could name that Capstone. You could name that Bike Project. You could name that New York Times, whatever you wanted to.
And then npm, so npm create React app installs it, and then
So
npm
npx.
start what?
Don't mix up your NPX with your NPM.
Oh, no, I had a typo. That's why.
Okay.
Oh, wait, did I do the wrong thing?
So NPX, create React app, X stands for execute, right? So what we're doing is we're saying, hey, go execute this command called create React app. That is different than NPM, Node Package Manager, which is just for installing packages.
Oh,
So
whoops.
NPX and NPM are related. I think the same company makes them, but NPX is for executing commands. NPM is for installing packages.
So I should do that again now then.
Yeah, just PWD first and make sure that you're in the right path. Make sure that you're in week 12, day 3. And it also probably wouldn't hurt to LS and make sure, oh, let me come up one level folder. If you've already got a playground folder, you're going to want to RM RF that.
Okay.
And if you're like, screw this terminal stuff, it's just easier to work in Finder. That's okay. You can pop open Finder and go into the My Code folder and go into week 12 and go into day 3. And here's our playground folder. If you delete it from here and then run an LS over here, it's going to be gone. Right? All of this is in sync. It's not like you have 2 separate files or 2 separate things there.
So it's RM
Space
minus REF.
RF, recursive folder is how I remember it,
That's what I was doing.
or
wrong.
remove folder. And then you're going to say playground or whatever you named it. And then you should be able to NPX create React app playground.
NPM.
X for execute.
NPX.
Oh, that's what I had before.
Oh, okay. Well, then you just deleted it, so you can just rerun it and you're fine.
NPX create React playground or create app playground.
You got it.
Okay. And then the NPM run start just gets us.
Gets us localhost 3000. So it starts up the React app for us so that we can run it.
Okay.
So
Thank
NPM run start or NPM start, same exact command. That is basically the equivalent of saying live server in VS Code,
Okay.
just
Thank you.
specifically for React.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I knew what they all did.
Good to get that. Corey, go ahead. And then Christy, I'll come to you next.
Yeah, can I share my screen?
Yep.
Okay, 1 second. All right. So there's a terminal. Okay.
Okay, so go ahead and run an LS. And here are all of the folders that are in your My Code. Do you
So
see
why is my-
do you see
why
week
isn't-
12 in there anywhere?
Yeah, why is it not showing up? Because I do have a week 12. Here's okay, I literally had a week 12. What happened? Oh, it's right there. Okay, never mind. My bad. I didn't see that. All right. Okay.
So now you can CD into week 12.
Okay.
And now you're in week 12, and to prove it, you can PWD, and that's going to show you your whole file path. And
Okay.
then you can make dir day 3. Oh, whoa, careful with the space.
So is it full day 3 or just D3 or?
Whatever you've done for all the other weeks is fine.
Oh yeah. All right. Okay. I got it. Okay. I'm gonna follow the thing because I have to go back and add all those.
Okay. Christy, you're up.
Okay, so I got stuck here. I think that I tried to hit Command L. How do I clear this out and start over? Command Control L, Command L.
To like completely start over from scratch or start over from
I think that I CD'd week 12 before I CD'd C3 my code. So
Okay,
I
so
was
so
trying to
run a PWD. First things first, most important thing in the terminal, where are we? Where are we working out of? Okay,
So is
we're
this-
in desktop week 12. We don't want to be in desktop week 12. We want to be in desktop my code week 12, right?
Right.
So what we're going to do is we want to come up one level. We want to get back in the desktop. How are we going to change our directory to get one level higher?
LS.
Nope, ls is listing everything that's in our current directory. How are we going to change our directory to go
CD.
higher?
CD.
CD space, and we're going to say dot dot. One dot means where I'm at now. Dot dot means go one level up. Okay, now we've got to clean up our mess. We have a week 12 folder where a week 12 folder doesn't belong. So we're going to RM, which stands for remove, space, dash, RF. Think of that remove folder. It doesn't actually stand for that, but that's how that's the mnemonic. Okay, space, week 12, and make sure your capitalization is right. So capital W. Yep, you got it.
Okay.
And
Now
now notice that disappeared from your desktop.
it did.
So now you're good. You've cleaned up your mess. Now
Okay.
where do we want to go?
We want to CD C3 my code.
Yep, go for it. And if you have enough of it typed in, just hit tab, and it's going to auto-complete it for you. So hit enter. Okay.
Okay.
Now what are we trying to do?
MKDIR week 12.
You got it. Oh, nope, no space.
Oh, wait, right. DIR week 12. Enter.
Okay, now it's saying week 12 already exists. To prove
Okay.
it, we can run ls, and that's going to list out all of the things in there. And look at that, we already have a week 12. So go
Okay.
ahead and CD into week 12.
CD. Well,
And now ls,
LS.
and we can see, oh, you only have a day 1.
MKDIR day 3.
You
Jeez.
got it. Believe it or not, you can get so fast in the terminal that you'll be making and changing directories faster in the terminal than you could in Finder.
And there it is. Okay.
So you've got one more step. You've got to CD into day 3 and then run your npx create React app playground.
And now it's I don't know.
npx all together space create dash React dash app. Get create spelled right though.
Oh, yep. Oh goodness. AIT.
There you go. Oh, 2 E's.
Oh my God. React. Dash. Wrote it down. App.
Space playground, enter. And now, once all of that is going through, you're going to CD into playground and npm start.
Oh, wait, CD into playground?
Yep.
Well, after we do everything, we CD into it.
Yes. Well, not always, but most of the time. When you create a new folder, do you want to open it and be working in there? Or do you want to keep going, right? So if I'm in week 12, I could mkdir day 1, then I could mkdir day 2, right? And I could go through and create all of those folders and then choose which one to go into.
So when this finishes, I CD into playground.
Yep.
And then when I get in playground, then I npm run start.
npm run start. Yes.
Spaces between all the npm
Yes.
space run space start.
Yes.
Oh, it's here. And then that's going to take me
Into localhost 3000 and you'll be caught up.
all right. Okay. I think I got it.
Sanjay, you're up.
I want to share my screen real quick.
Yep.
I just want to know how to delete that playground out of here. It's telling me that it's a.
Yes, so when you RM, if it's a folder, you have to use the -RF.
Oh, that's what I was wondering. Okay. Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
it will let you RM any file, but when you're deleting a whole folder, you also have to tell the computer to delete everything inside of that folder, and that's what RF is doing. Nicole, no such file is usually because you either have a space in the name, or you don't have it spelled right. So you want to LS and see two things you can do. You can PWD RM space -RF, Sanjay.
Oh,
You combine them
okay.
without the space though after the dash. There you go. So Nicole, you want to PWD and make sure that your working directory is where you think you are. You spelled playground wrong there, Sanjay, so it didn't actually delete the file. And then you want to LS, and when you LS, it's going to print out everything in there. And if you CD into it, make sure you're CDing into something that was just listed out. Go ahead, Nicole.
So it's saying that I'm in users. Is that okay? I didn't really want to. Anything.
So no, you want to CD all the way down to where you want your files to be.
Okay, so I just go to like CD documents, and that's
Or
where my file will
desktop,
be.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
It's very common to CD multiple times to get down any, wherever you want to get down to in the folder structure before you start running npx. Okay, any other questions? Are we caught up?
Yeah, can I show you what I got real quick?
Yep, go ahead. Okay, so you're caught up. All you have to do is go to localhost 3000 and you're going to see your React app in the browser.
Okay, what about this when it says use npm run build? What is that?
That's only for production. We're not going to production. Production is like when you're done working on your app and you go to deploy it, you deploy it to a production server. And that's something that Nathan will cover when he comes back for the second part of DevOps.
Okay.
Any other questions? Nicole, go ahead.
You just want to catch me up so I can just be.
I posted the screenshot.
I can't hear you. Hold on.
You should be able to. Can anyone else hear me?
I can
Okay.
hear you. No, it's sometimes in the box. My AirPods still connect.
The screenshot in the live stream should be everything you need.
Okay.
Zach, go ahead.
It didn't open automatically in my browser. I did the npm run start.
Yep. If
I
it
don't-
doesn't, but it still says localhost 3000 in your terminal, you can just open it manually by hand in Chrome. So just go to localhost :3000 and hit enter and it should pop up.
Yeah, that's what I did.
It's saying this site can't be reached.
Okay, go ahead and share your screen. All right, go back to your terminal. Lots of errors. Oh, lots and lots of errors. Oh, do an LS or a PWD. Okay, so you're in day 3, you're not in playground.
Oh, that's
So, and don't forget to use your, yeah, okay. So now if you npm run start.
That must be why. Sweet. Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else? Okay, again, let me just run through this one final time, because super important. This is not about just following along with me. This is about understanding each and every command that we run. PWD, print working directory. Where am I at in my terminal right now? LS. Okay, now based off of wherever I'm at in my terminal, can I see the list of all the files inside of that working directory? Could I have opened my terminal and just run LS? Absolutely. Could I have opened my terminal and CD'd right into desktop without PWD and without LS? Absolutely. The PWD and the LS are kind of like console logs. Hey, terminal, tell me where you're at. Tell me what files are in this working directory. So I can CD in there. And now that I've CD'd into my desktop, I want to list all of my files and folders that are in my desktop. So I LS them out and I go, oh, my code is where I want to get to. So I CD into my code. Now I want to see, do I already have a week 12 folder? Well, if I know without a doubt that I've got a week 12, I can skip this LS and move right into my week 12. But I didn't have a week 12, so I made it and then I CD'd into it. We are on week 12, not week 11, right? Am I going crazy? No, okay. Okay, now that I'm in week 12, I PWD. I want to make sure I made it actually in there. Can I skip the PWD? Absolutely. It's a console log. It's not impacting what we're doing. Then I had to make my day one directory and PWD, and that's when I got into day one. Then I create my React app and I am good to go. Although this is the screenshot from Monday, so that would explain why it's day one and not day 3. Regardless, I npx create React app. That is executing the create React app command for me, getting all of my files created, installing all of my npm packages. Finally, I'm CDing into that new folder and starting up the server. Okay. So with all of that said, I'm going to go into VS Code. I'm going to file open. And I'm going to go to my week 12. I'm going to go to my day 3. I'm going to go to my playground and I'm going to pop that open. So now that I'm here, I want to make sure my server is running. So I'm going to npm start. No, I'm not. I'm going to cd into my playground, and then I'm going to npm start. You thinking about opening? Oh, over here. Okay, so I've got my spinning React thing. Now, the last thing we need to recover here is we got to clean all of this out, right? We want a clean slate that we can work with. So in my VS Code, I am going back to my SRC, and I am going to my app.js. How did we get to app.js? Well, index.js we know is our special file, just like we know index.html is our special file. And in here, it's referring to app. Where's this app coming from? Oh, it's being imported from this other file called app. So that's why we know, hey, app.js, here's all of the stuff that this is where we want to start with our blank slate. So I'm going to clear everything out that's in here. And I'm going to hit save, and I come back over here, and it looks like everything is gone. But if I do hello world, I notice it's centered. Okay, well, we cleaned out all of our content, but we also need to go to our app.css and clean all of this out. I don't want any of their starter stuff. I want to start from scratch. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. I'm going to go back to my app.js. I'm going to come over here. I have my hello world. And I am good to go. Any questions on that?
Yeah, can you go back to your app.js?
Yep.
Could you make a quick run-through again?
Yep. So I went to my app.js. I deleted everything that was inside of the div tag and put hello world in there instead. Then I went to my app.css, which I know I'm going to because it's imported right here. And when I go to my app.css, I delete everything out that's in this file. I don't delete the file itself because I'm going to use it eventually, but
Right.
I delete out everything in it because that's all of our like starter code. Nicole, go ahead.
Can I at least follow on this part?
You have to have create React app working in order to have all of these files. Do you want me to get you through really quick? Okay, go ahead and share your screen.
Can you see it?
Okay, you're in users. So we're going to ls and we're going to say, hey, we want to get into your username. So we're going to cd into your username and we ls again. You keep everything in your documents, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then from here, we're going to ls again and we're going to allow it in there. And this is where we're headed, right? So we're going to say cd c3 my code. And we're going to ls again. Now you all already have a week 12 folder, so we don't need to create it. We're just going to switch into it. And we're going to ls again. Now you've got your day 3 already created. So we're going to go into our day 3. We're going to ls again. Now you already have a playground for day 3. So we're going to cd into the playground. And it says that it's not a directory. So I'm not quite sure how you deleted that or created that, but I'm going to just delete your playground. Now I can npx create React app, our playground. That's installing React for us. That's getting our project set up. That's creating all of our files for us, all in that playground folder.
Thank you.
So after this, you're going to cd into playground and then npm run start and then open the playground folder in VS Code.
Okay.
Just is going to take a minute because it wasn't installed from yesterday, which is why it ran faster on ours. But you'll be caught up after that.
Okay.
Other
Let me
questions?
just- Oh,
Go ahead, Zach.
Sorry, I just have one quick question. So if I'm like working in VS Code and modifying the web page we just opened, if I close out of terminal, that like terminates the connection?
It does.
I did that after class yesterday and I was like, is that what I is that what I
Yeah.
did?
So good question. This has to be running because this is what our localhost 3000 is coming from. So when we close this window and hit terminate, you see how it says running processes node and npm run start. That npm run start is what's letting us get to our web page. So when I close out of that and now I refresh, it says site can't be reached. It's like turning off live share, right? We now it doesn't know where localhost 3000 is. So what you can do is pop open the terminal again, but you have to go through the whole path. You have to go back to your desktop, your C3 my code, your week 12, and your day 3 playground. And when you get all the way down there, you can chain all of them, right? The slashes are saying go down through the folder path. And now if you npm run start again, you'll see this fires back up.
Cool, thank you.
No problem. Great question. Yeah, this localhost 3000 running in the background, we don't think of it running in the background, but that is what's making our live changes show up and all of that kind of stuff. Okay, with all of that said, we're going to go to React concepts. This is right on the React homepage under docs, and then we're going to go to number 4. Right, so we got introduced to JSX yesterday. We started understanding that it's kind of like a template literal. We can put our variable names in there, and then whatever gets returned out of our function is the HTML that shows up. So now we get into, okay, components. We've heard that mentioned before. There are two different kinds of components. For the first couple years that React was around, everything was a class-based component. However, in the past year or two, almost the entire industry has gotten on board and said function components are where we're headed. So if you open some React code and it looks like this, don't panic. However, because so much of the industry has moved over to function components, that's what we're going to practice with the most. With that said, if you're going out and finding additional learning resources, what you want to do is make sure that learning resource is using functions and is using something called hooks, which we're going to get into in 1 second. And when I say 1 second, I mean it's number 5 concept, not number 4 concept. But just be careful, right? Because remember all the frustration you had with VS Code, or I'm sorry, with Free Code Camp, where you're like, he told us to use let and const, and it's saying var over here. Or he told us to use the arrow functions, and it's saying the word function. Those are all iterations of JavaScript, as is functional components in React. So there are a lot of benefits to using functional components. I won't get into all of them, but like I said, 2 things you want to look at if you're using any learning resource. 1, make sure that it's using a function and it looks more like this. The alternative is called a class-based component, and those are not used as much anymore. In most new code, you won't see it at all. And you want to make sure that it is using a hook, which we'll get into in 1 second. Okay, so coming down here, we can make several components. So again, none of this is getting turned in for homework. If you want to go along for the ride, that's completely fine. So I can come in here and I can create a new function called car. And what's my car going to do? It's going to return some information. Okay, now I can work with this and say, hey, if I would like to include my car, I can actually use that tag. And I'm going to make it self-closing. Okay, this just got weird. We're in our HTML, we're doing all right, and we've got our hello world, and that's fine. And then we pulled in car. Well, that kind of looks like HTML. It's got a capital name, you know, a capital letter instead of a lowercase one. But wait, how's my car coming from a function? This is our JavaScript. JSX just broke down that barrier and said, hey, I know what car is because it's a function out here. So whenever I see car, I'm going to take whatever is in here and shove it in here. So when we go back to our code, it says Tesla Model Y. And in fact, that component that we just made, it doesn't have to just return a string. It can return several things. It could return some HTML. And in that HTML, we've got the full ability to do anything in here. So we can come in and say, hey, we're going to put a span tag in here. And that's going to have text decoration underline. And that span tag is going to close out after I say Tesla. Now, if I could spell underline right, we get our underline going on. Now, Doug asked an important question yesterday. He said, I'm trying to use this style tag and it's not working. One of the things that is different about JSX is that style in particular, just like them not using class, they use class name instead. In React, style takes an object instead of a string. And so we always camel case our CSS properties, and then the values stay the same. So a little different in React to use an object in the style, but that's just JSX leaning more towards React than it does to HTML. So we've got all of this stuff going on here. We made a new component called car. And components can have other components in them. So we could say something like function model and say return model Y. Now, in order to use this model, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to say, hey, I would like my new function, my new component called model. So when we go back, nothing changes over here, but what's happening is it's cascading down. App is rendering out hello world, and then it's saying car. Car is a component we just created. Where's the car? Oh, that's here. So go ahead and run this H1. Go ahead and make that H1 show up. Oh, now you want a model to show up. We're going to bridge that gap from our HTML into our JavaScript, and we're going to have whatever is in here come out. Now, what if we would like multiple cars to show up? Well, we can just reuse our component. Now, when we come over here, we get 3 Teslas. Okay, we're going to pause there. Someone brave enough to kind of talk through what this code is doing?
I'll give it a shot.
Sure.
All right, so we start from like the function app.
Sure.
All right, so the function app is creating a div with hello world in it, and then it's calling the component car, which is a function. Is that correct so
it
far?
Is a component function, yes.
Component function, okay. And the function car, the component function car is just returning the H1 with the span, with a style text decoration underlined with the word Tesla, and then the model. That's also a component function, and that's just returning the string model Y.
You got it. So remember, whenever we have a function, the return is basically going and sending back the output, whatever that function just did. Well, what that's doing now is instead of using model Y here, instead of using model and calling it with our parentheses, React is a little weird. And it says, hey, when you're in your JSX, when you're working with kind of the stuff close to the HTML, you can call model by putting it in the arrow brackets. And now that we're in those arrow brackets, we know, hey, go look for another function, and we're going to use that function as a component to show up whatever comes out of the function. So this is essentially calling the function, which is creating our new component. And if you're like, okay, where can I get some more information about this? We are in the docs, rendering a component. And so we're practicing with this function, and we're going to get into the props in just 1 second. 9 votes in. Looks like 10 is our magic number tonight, so I'll give you guys 1 more minute. Okay, just hit 10. Does anyone need help before we move on?
I do. I'm getting an error.
Go for it, Doug. Oh, nope, sorry. Now you can go for it. Okay, so this is a very good error to have. You cannot return more than 1 div in your component. So you can have nested divs, but if you take that final closing div and move it so car is now inside the div, you're good to go. So that's a good rule that I didn't teach yet, but you can only return one div or one component from your return of another component. Any other questions?
Does it have to be a div or any element that you're returning?
Any element, and there is something called a fragment, which is not even a div itself, but it's literally just like a holder of all the different elements. But it does not have to be a div. It can be, you can return a span, you could return whatever. It could be an H1, doesn't matter.
As long as it's one encompassing everything inside.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we're gonna roll forward here. So remember that parameter thing where we could say, hey, based off of the input of this function, use that information to return something out as part of the output, right? So the easiest example of this is if we've got a function called add, it takes num1 and num2, and then it's going to return num1 plus num2. Okay, none of this code matters, but when we say console log out add 5 and 4, well, when we look in our browser at the inspect, we get 9 coming out. Okay, none of this code runs until we say add. But add is like, well, we need more information. What would you like to add together? So in order for this function to run, we need to take this and send it in as arguments, which then come into these parameters up here. 5 goes in here, 4 goes in here. And now when we reference num1, it's following it all the way through, right? So we're taking 5 right here. 5 is getting sent into num1. Now, when we use num1, these two are linked together, just like 4 is linked to num2. So now 4 comes in here. Now, when we say 5 plus 4, we're going to get 9. 9 is going to be returned. Return goes back to the add, and the add comes all the way back down here to where it was called for the first time and says, hey, this whole thing is now going to get crossed out and 9 is going to go in there instead. Now that's just regular JavaScript, right? That's regular parameters. That's not anything Reacty. But in React, we do have a similar concept called props. And those props, we can send down some information. So in our car, all of our cars are not the same make. So in here, we can kind of use what we think of as attributes, right? HTML attributes are props in React. They're properties of the component that we're using. So this we're going to say the make is Toyota, and the car make is going to be Honda, and then the last make is going to be Tesla. Now, if we look, we still have Tesla, Tesla, Tesla. Well, because we sent this prop in, but we haven't used it yet. So the way that we get access to it in our car here is we're going to put a little object in here, and we're going to say make. Then down here, we're going to use our curly braces to say, hey, JSX, I don't want the word make to show up. I actually want Toyota, Honda, or Tesla to show up. Larry, you can absolutely use arrow notation instead of the function. In fact, that's what I prefer. But just because this started out as functions, I just stuck with it. But you can totally be in here and say const model equals and an arrow function. and that's going to show up the exact same way. Okay, let's take a step back on those props. Prop, when you see a prop used in the component where the component is showing up, you're gonna think, oh, that's an HTML attribute, right? Kind of. In React, we call them props instead. So the name of this prop is going to be make, and the value of the prop is going to be Toyota. So now this car right here is lining up with our function car down here. Okay, so we're going to take Toyota, and just like parameters where we've got to tell it, hey, heads up, you're going to get the make coming in as a prop, we have to do the same thing here. So this make is going to line up with this make here, and is going to send Toyota into my make. Okay, now we want to make the make show up. We could come in here and say console log make. Regular JavaScript because we are before our return. So because we're before the return, we've got regular JavaScript going on here. If I come over here and take a look, I get Toyota, Honda, and Tesla. Okay, but I don't want the make to actually show up as the letters M-A-K-E in my code. I want the actual value to show up. Again, that value is coming from the prop here, which is coming from up here, which is getting the text from there. So in order to tell our JavaScript, hey, don't want the actual letters to show up, if this were template literal, we would do $ curly braces. But it's not, it's JSX. So because it's React, we don't need the $. The curly braces right here are going to say, hey, take whatever that word is and make it show up in here. So when we come over here, we get Toyota, Honda, and Tesla. Stopping there, relaunching the poll, but as I do that, now if none of that made sense to you and you're like, what the hell is he talking about props? Go to the documentation and go down to rendering a component, and here's where they're going to start talking about props, right? And they're going to talk about how they can pass the name in, and then, hey, we get our props out and we use them. Now, there are multiple ways we can use props. I kind of used a shortcut here, and I used what is called an object deconstructor. The other way we can do this, I'm going to copy this whole thing, comment it out, is we can just get access to our props here. And once we have our props, we can say props.make. And that is going to work exactly the same way. Refresh it to proof. So either one of these syntaxes is allowed, whatever you're more comfortable with. If you think it's easier to understand, hey, all the props that I want to get access to are going between these curly braces, you can do that. If it's easier to think, hey, props is this object that I'm getting, and when I'm in here, I can console log out my props and see make is Tesla. Props is just another object. The difference is the way we are getting access to those props is coming in from our JSX here. So when we say model equals RAV4 and CRV and Y, when we look, we get Honda, make, model, CRV. So we can take all of this and get practice using our props. We can take our model and say, hey, the model needs to be sent down. So send down the make. Oh. Okay, let's take a step back. This syntax and this syntax, almost the exact same. The only difference is that props is going to give us our whole object. So what we're doing is we're saying, hey, I'm referencing a car component right here. That car component is this big function here. So whenever I reference a car, I'm going to get whatever is returned out of this function here, and it's going to come up into right here. And we can actually see that if we go into our browser, we can take a look and see, hey, this H1 has my span text decoration underline Toyota RAV4, right? That is all coming from this H1 right here. And because we reference car 3 times, we're able to see that H1 1, 2, 3 times. Okay, but our components need some additional information, right? They need to know what the input is. So we're going to use props here. This make is going to be the name of the prop, and Toyota is going to be the value. And now we've got a second prop we're sending in, the model right here, and the value of that prop is going to be RAV4. All of these props are going to get sent in as an object to our props parameter in our component, in our function component. Okay, and we can actually see what those props look like in our console log. Now, when we go into our console log, it's just an object, right? Whatever is on the left side of the key of the object, right here, right here is coming from the name of the prop right here. And the value of the prop, Tesla, is coming in from whatever the right side of the prop is here. Okay, now we've got the information in our function car to figure out how do we get that information to show up. Okay, so we're going to take a step back and we're going to say, all right, in our props, we know props is just another object here. So we're going to use and practice with our JSX to come in here and say, hey, use the props to make the make show up. Now that is coming in, our make is coming down into our props are getting console logged out, but when we say props down here, it knows, oh, you're talking about the props right up here. Now go get the make. Where's the make coming from? That's coming through our props. That's coming from where we call that function.
Hey, Max.
Yeah.
Larry wanted to know if props is an arbitrary parameter argument. He asked in the chat.
The names of the props are arbitrary, and you can, by default, it always, the first parameter that you give a function component will always contain the props object. So if you wanted to, and you wanted to call this my props, you could get away with that here, and it should work exactly the same. So because it's positional, it does not actually have to be the name props, but I don't think I can say I've ever seen it called anything else. Okay, we're gonna do a mini in-class assignment because this was a whole lot. So we are going to say, and I'm going to put this all in the live stream, make a file with 2 components, make the second component.
Are you sharing your screen?
I'm Make a file with 2 components. The second component should take a prop from the first component. Then, and make it both. I'm not going to show you how to do that, but want you to practice with this second component, right? Create some component, have it take some data, have it take a prop up here, and then make it show that information by using the prop that you sent down. Any questions about what you guys are trying to work on? So you should have 2 components. We've got app, that's our first component. You should have another component. You can call it whatever you want. Does not have to be transportation related, although if you're like our president and love trains, you could call it train for all I care. Okay, now you need to use a property when you use that component up here and pass some data using props into our new second function. And then using JSX, make that prop show up in bold. Doug, go ahead.
Are we doing this in the app.js or do we need to
That's
make a new
fine.
file? Okay.
App.js is fine.
Max, did you want that poll cleared?
I'm working on a poll right now. Oh, emojis don't work in Zoom polls. That's a bummer.
Can I see your code again?
Yep. I'm gonna share it in live stream.
Thank you.
And Danielle, the website that we're using for the documentation is React's official website. It's reactjs.org, which is going to take us to this page. And then if we go in, not into the tutorial, which is where you think it would be, but go into the docs instead, under main concepts, everything we're practicing with is under components and props. So if we're in here, this is going to show us how we can use our props and get data out like name. All right, whoever just voted, when I explicitly said, don't vote for this. Who needs help? Anyone needs help, just raise your hand. We'll work on it together. Go ahead, Larry.
You know, I'm thinking about it. I can't share my screen because I'm on my phone with Zoom and on my computer with the other thing. So, yeah.
You could copy and paste your code into Slack, and then I can screen share my thing and help you with it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Or you can start a live share from VS Code and send me the link that it generates. That's probably even better, but either one, whatever's easier. All right, so we're gonna practice with Doug's code here. So this is what Doug has so far. He said he created a function called make bold and then a property to make bold. We're gonna come back to that in a second. What he has is his hello world and his 3 cars. His 3 cars are coming down into here, and they're showing up the span and making the make show up, and then they are having the model, which is coming from here. So what Larry's code looks like in the browser looks like this. Okay, well, he met the first requirement, which is take the make and make that get passed down into the function as a property. Okay, so he did that. Now we said, what was the other requirement? Make a file with 2 components. Well, we've done that. We've got function app and function car. The second component should take a prop from the first component. Okay, in this one, it is taking make and passing it down to the second component down here. Okay, and that prop, it should make it show up in bold. Okay, well, if we look, here's where we're using the prop make. So in this case, because this span already exists around the property, all we need to do is use a style font weight bold. Now, when we come over, we get our make. Is that all bolded? Just change this to a P tag. The H1 was screwing with it a little bit. So if I make it a P tag, now my make is showing up in bold. So this would meet the requirements. Okay, make a file with 2 components. What are our 2 components? Our first component is one called app. Our second component is one called function. I'm sorry, it's called car. Okay, now the second component, this one down here, should take a prop from the first one. Okay, well, here's the prop that it's taking. And where is it taking it from? It's taking it from the first component where we use it, called car. Okay, now it should make that show up in bold. So we take our prop, our make that we're using right here, and we put it in these curly braces. Now JSX knows, hey, make that value show up. Okay, now that we've got that value showing up, we wanted to make it show up in bold. So we use our JSX, and instead of text decoration underline, we use our font weight bold. So that's what we're working towards. And if you do have that working, practice with making your own new function. Instead of making it car, make it teacher, make it student, make it whatever you want. The function app, that app has to be called that name, but any other component you can call whatever you would like. And if you're stuck somewhere, if you're just working on it, feel free to share your screen. Stephanie, go ahead.
Well, let me share my screen. Mine's showing an error, but I
Okay.
don't know if to look for it.
It's fine.
This.
So it's even helping you out. It's saying invalid DOM property class name. Did you mean class name?
But I don't know where to find it because I didn't think I used. Oh, I'm stupid. Never mind. Ugh,
Save.
okay.
Awesome.
Sweet. Thank you.
And if you have it done, go back and leave yourself some notes in the code. What's going on there? What's the property? What's the value? How's that getting passed down? Stephanie, don't forget to vote in the poll.
Would you mind taking a look at my code?
Go for it. Okay, so you're saying miles is not defined. And where are you using line 46? Okay. So down in 46, you're saying you're trying to use another component here called miles, and miles doesn't exist. So here, let's take a step back, because I think you're trying to, let me quest. And I'm just going to scoot this a little bit over, hopefully, maybe. Come on. There we go. Okay. So all the way up in our app, we know everything starts in an app. What you're doing is you're sending the car information in, and then you've got another function, another functional component called mileage. Okay, where's mileage? Mileage is down here. Okay, so now you're getting your props in, they're console logging out, and you're showing up gallons completely fine. Okay, because everything here is showing that. But when you come down here, it's like miles. Okay, let me go find another function or another component called miles, and that doesn't exist. So there are two ways you could solve this. One, you could say, hey, I would like my mileage to show up just in the H1. I want to say, hey, my props.miles is going to show this information up here. So now I've got my per gallon 20, my per gallon 30, my per gallon 5 showing up. Or if you really wanted miles to be its own component, you could say function miles takes my props again, and those props are going to return like a p tag that's going to show my props.miles. Now it also shows your per gallon 20, per gallon 30, all of that. So you were on the right track. This is a new component that you made, and you sent it two props, one called miles, one called gallon. Then you came down and you created a new function, a new component called mileage, and you were on the right track in using your props per gallon. The problem was that you had miles here, and it was like, I don't know a function called miles. I don't know what that is. So what we did is we created a new component called miles that took the props and just showed the miles. You are muted if you're asking me a question.
So if they're all the same value, I don't need to make a separate function for it. But if I wanted to replace it with something else, like a value, then I'd have to make a function for it. That's why gallon worked, but miles didn't.
It depends. You can, the whole point of a function is that you can reuse the component over and over again with different data in it. So in this situation, it probably doesn't make any sense to have a new function called a new component called miles. You could just reference it right in here. But if for whatever reason you said, hey, miles is like 50 lines of HTML, and it's going to take the data and we're going to use it separately, then you would want to make it its own component.
Okay. And if I want to reorder this so that it says the number first.
Yep.
You just cut that and paste it here.
Yep.
Okay. And then I have
and
to.
you probably want to take out that top one because you're putting in both props miles.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. And then just also get 45 there. do command / instead. The way you comment out in JSX is a little different.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
No problem. Don't forget to vote in the poll. Christy, go ahead.
Okay, so I feel like
You're really close. You've got one semicolon on line 11 that's breaking everything.
this.
Yeah.
Oh,
There you go. Now give that a try. Save.
uh,
There you go.
oh wait, I was trying to see if I could see it in my. No, it's not showing in my console.
No, it's not going to be in your console. It's going to be in your page.
That's what I meant to say. On the 5500, right?
3000.
3000.
We don't use live server for React code.
That's why. I've been hitting go live. Wait, wait. Oh, I must have messed that up. Because I don't see it.
Okay, so stop your live share down there. Yep.
Yeah.
Now go to the terminal that we were in where we did the Create React app. You're going to have to come out of full screen on your second monitor to be able to pull that over. Okay, so that's the server that's running. So if you go to Chrome and type in localhost :3000 and hit enter, it's going to pull up your React code.
Okay, wait a second. You said local host, all one word.
All one word, :3000, no spaces.
The local host didn't take. Wait a minute. Okay. Oh my God.
Is that what you wanted?
No.
Okay, pull that window over onto your other monitor so I can see it.
Okay, hold on. So, oh, wait. So I just type right here, local.
Yep. Localhost :3000. Oh, missing the O.
Something is wrong with my keyboard.
Enter.
Oh, okay. It's working. All right.
Okay, we're at break time. We are going to break and come back at 7, we'll say 7:30.
Remind me.
Yep, go for it.
Share. Yeah. So I just got to work. I was traveling. Sorry. You want me to? I don't know what I'm doing. Not joking. You said I was supposed to make a function.
A functional component, yep. And you're supposed to pass data in using a prop. And then after that prop, you're supposed to make that prop show up in bulk.
Okay.
So we're gonna go through an example after the break to practice this again. So let's just wait until after the break.
Okay.
Zach, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, why is like everything in bold instead of
Because
just,
it's an H1, so just change your H1 to a P tag, and then it will work the way you think it will.
oh, span? No.
Go back to your code. You've got the per gallon. Oh,
Hey, how's
the
it going?
in function car,
Yeah.
you change that H1 to a P tag as well. Okay, we're kind of on the right track. Go back. It's font weight, not text decoration.
Oh,
Text decoration is for underlining and italic. Don't ask me why it's a capital W. Don't ask me why it's a different property. There you go.
sweet. Thank you.
All right, welcome back, everyone. So we're going to do one more example here. We're going to talk through components. We're going to talk through props. We're going to talk through JSX. So I just cleared out my code. You don't have to follow along. We're just going to go through this and talk through where we're at. So function app, this is our main component. And whenever we see function app that's returning some HTML, we know that that is a functional component, right? Okay, so now that we're here, we're going to have a couple things show up. We're going to say, let's have a teacher and a student, right? So we're going to say strong teacher. And the teacher's name, we're going to put all of that in a p tag. And the teacher's name is going to say, and then that teacher is going to have some students. And off the top of my screen, I've got these three. So we'll put them in. Okay. Component. We have our component called app, and it's returning some HTML back. And this is all JSX. We haven't done anything fancy here, but when I look in my browser, it says teacher and students. I have Wayne twice. Okay.
What does strong mean?
Bold.
Okay.
We could do a span, but I'm just going to do strong for now. Okay, so we got our basic component going on here, right? Whatever HTML is in our return is what's going to show in the browser. Okay, but now I would like this information to show for multiple teachers. I would like this to show for Karen, and I would like this to show for Ariel, and I'd like this to show for Caitlin. Okay, well, now we're repeating a whole bunch of code. We want to find a way to make this reusable. So what we're going to do is we're going to start breaking this into components, which we'll be able to reuse. So the first thing we need to do is make that component. So we're going to scroll down and we're going to say, hey, new component for teacher. And that function teacher needs to return something. It needs to return the HTML that we would like to show up for them. So it's going to return a div. And inside that div, it's going to say teacher and students. So I'm going to copy all of the code here. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to paste it in. Okay, now this isn't being used yet. This function teacher is not being called. That component has not been used yet. So the way we get teacher to show up in JSX is we come up here and we use a capital letter because components that we make always are capital letters. So what this is doing is it's saying, oh, because we're in JSX, let me go find the component called teacher. That is this component down here. So when we return, we're going to get this every single time. So now I've got my teacher, that's coming from my function, and then we've got all the other ones showing up here. Okay, well, wouldn't it be nice if we could get rid of all of this code and have the teacher show up for those times? So I'm going to paste teacher in 3 times. Now I get teacher, students, teacher, students, teacher, students. Okay, so we got our new component for teacher that we just created, and that is always going to output the HTML that we put into the return. Okay, but we don't want max, max, max showing up. We would like to say, hey, when I use this teacher component right here, I need to pass in some properties about the teacher. I need to give this teacher component that we just created some properties about the teacher. Okay, the first one that we're going to pass in is teacher name. And that's going to look just like an HTML attribute to you, right? We've used style and class and all of those. React is letting us use our own properties. So the teacher name we're going to say is Max, and another teacher name is going to be Ariel, and the last teacher name is going to be Karen. Okay, so when I save that and come over here, nothing has changed yet. And that's because my teacher right here is hard-coded. It doesn't know to use that property. So what we need to do is say, hey, in the function teacher, we need to tell it, hey, there are some props coming into the teacher from up here. So we're going to say props. Now this props is getting access to whatever teacher name is from up here. But we still haven't told it where to use those props yet. We just told it, hey, there's some props that are coming in. So what we need to do is come down here and say, hey, we're going to use the props. And what prop do we actually want to use? We would like to use the teacher name. Okay, well, when we go over to our code, we get props.teachername. Well, we don't want props teacher name. We want the actual teacher's name to show up. So what we're going to do, just like when we use that template literal, the $ curly braces, we're going to use those curly braces, and JSX is going to know, hey, I want to get the actual value of the teacher name. And now I get Max, Ariel, and Karen. So let's follow this flow one more time. Our function app is going to show up whatever HTML is between the returns. So it's going to make a div, and it's like, great, regular HTML. But now it got to this, and it says teacher. Teacher is not an HTML tag. It's our own functional component that we created. We made that component. How does it know what to do for that component? It's coming down and saying, oh, this function is right here. I'm going to use that teacher. Okay, now let's figure out what's going to show up. Every time we use the teacher, it's going to return a div with all of that stuff in it. Now we're going along and we're like regular HTML, a div, a p tag, some HTML for making that name show up in bold. And now we hit a curly brace. And that curly brace is saying, hold on, we don't actually want the words props.teachername to show up. We want that teacher name. Okay, how is it getting that? All of that is trickling down. So we have teacher name Max. So teacher name is going to get sent down to the props right here. Those props are just like a parameter in JavaScript or just like an attribute in HTML. Okay, now from that props is actually an object. So we're going to come down here into this props, and we are going to get the teacher name out. Well, teacher name, because it went all the way through here, it's linked back up to my Max up here. So all of that is trickling down, which means the whole teacher name is going to show up here instead. Okay, so we're going to take a minute. Your next task is to add, and I'll put this in the live stream. Add a new property, new prop to the teacher component called students, and make their names show up in the teacher component. So you're going to copy and paste my code right from Slack into your app.js file. You're going to take this whole thing, just copy it in, come here and paste it. And what we need to do is add a new prop up here called students, and then make that prop be used down here to show the students' names.
So Max, I got a question. Up
Yep.
there, is it like we're creating, for lack of a better term, teacher objects that have their own teacher names up there?
Yes.
I know the components, but okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
If you want to think about this, if you're coming from an object-oriented background, this is an instance, or this is the class, and each teacher is an instance of this component down here.
Thank you. That helped a lot for me. Thank you.
These two are linked, right? And so what happens is if we comment out our entire teacher or our entire teacher right here, and we go to React, React is like teacher is not defined. It only knows what teacher is here because we made our teacher down here. So if we called this anything else, if we just called this teacher 2, it's like teacher is not defined, because when we reference it here, it knows, oh, you want me to put all of that in its place. So now instead of having all of this code repeated, we can reuse our component here called teacher to make this code be repeated without having to copy and paste it over and over and over again. So I just launched the poll. I'm going to leave this up again. The goal is to add a property up here, a prop up here, and then called students. And from that, you're going to use that prop down here to make the students' names show up. So you want to use this exact flow, right? We've already got a prop in here. So adding another prop, think about how you would add another HTML attribute, right? We could use class, or we could use ID. Those are all HTML attributes. So a prop is just like another HTML attribute that we can call whatever we want. And whenever we call it, it's going to get sent down in here as props. And we can even take a look at those props by console logging out our props here. When we console log out our props, we can see props is just an object. It's passing in whatever value came from up here. So now we are using that to make it appear in our JS apps. And the main benefit of this is we don't have to repeat this div over and over again. We can say, hey, we've got 3 teachers and they all have their own name. But those teachers are also going to have their own students. So that's when we want to add a students prop, which will automatically get passed down into here. And now that we've got that prop, we want that to show up instead of our students that we have hard-coded in. If anyone is stuck, if anyone doesn't know where to start, go ahead and raise your hand and we'll work through it.
I have a question.
Yep.
So You're saying that you want us to change lines 9, 10, and 11.
Yep.
Okay, so then after we change 9, 10, and 11, do we change 30, 22?
25. We still want the teacher's name to show up, but we want now the students to show up with whatever is coming from the prop up here.
Oh, okay, I did it wrong. Okay, I got you.
I just want to remind you guys too, if you can get through it, I would comment notes about what you did, because you're going to look at this probably in a day or two and not remember exactly why you did what. So that's the only way I keep it separate for me.
I'm fine to be here for the next 45 minutes. We're gonna make sure everyone's getting this, because if we lose you here, we're gonna have all kinds of problems with state and events. So we want to make sure that we understand, hey, when we're using our component, this is our component. This is how it knows, make this component show up. And what's going to be inside of that component, that's anything going on down here. Okay, but now we want to customize this component. We want different data to show up differently about this teacher. So in order to do that, we're going to use props. And this is the prop name and the prop value. And we're taking that and passing that down through our props here, and then using it in our content. If anyone has questions, go ahead, raise your hand. Otherwise, go ahead and vote in the poll, or if you're still working on it, that's fine. Happy to help you if you're stuck anywhere.
So when we change lines 9, 11, and 13, we put, what is that, like is that a string? When we
It
use
sure is.
Okay.
So this is something that everyone should be doing, getting that practice in React, right? And part of this is, even if you're someone who doesn't learn by doing and is just scribbling down notes, this one in particular, everyone should be doing this. Because when you go work for an employer, they're not going to say, welcome to the job, go ahead and create a new project and get started. They're going to say, we've been working on this app for years and years, here's all of this code. And so when you're given code like this, you have to work within it, right? And you have to identify, all right, my boss wants me to get student names to show up. How do I do that? All right, I need to add in a prop because every teacher is going to have different students. If I just had their name here, that's going to be the same for every single teacher that we use. But we can use the props from up here and customize it so each student has their own teachers, their own students. And then if we do the right thing down here to use that prop, that list of students at the individual level is going to show up different for each teacher.
Can you repeat what you said about what an employer would give us? You said an employer would give us a file.
Oftentimes an employer is going to give you an app that's already in progress, right? They're going to give you a bunch of different files and they're going to say, well, we've already been developing this app, right? Oftentimes, especially as junior devs, you're not going to be expected to start a project from scratch. There's already going to be a team working on this app that they've already started on. So oftentimes they're going to say, hey, we need something like our students' names to show up here. Can you make that happen? And so what you're going to have to do is find the right file that's showing up those student names, right? Or showing up the teacher names and figure out, hey, the prop is controlling it up here, which is making each teacher have an individual name. So I'm probably going to have to add another prop here to make the students show up down here.
Okay.
Right. So oftentimes you're not going to whip out a new script.js and just start going at it. There are going to be files that are already created that you need to navigate in order to figure out, hey, I see this place on the website. Where is that place in the code? And so looking at this and saying, okay, Wayne, Larry, Doug, let me go find where Wayne, Larry, Doug is showing up in the code. So you're going to come over here and you're going to look in index.js and you're going to say, it's not in here. I don't see Wayne, Larry, Doug in this, but I do see app. Oh, that's coming from app.js. Okay, well, it's not actually in the app component. Where is that coming from? Oh, it's calling teacher. Teacher is coming from down here. Okay, where's teacher? Oh, here are their names. Okay, so where is it set up so that every teacher has their own independent name? Oh, that's coming in from the props up here, and that props is trickling down from here down into here. Okay, well, I can use this same structure and add another prop here. And if I do that on all three of them, that means that as long as I use the prop down here, we're going to be able to see those independent teachers' students.
Line 28 has to have the props.
Yep.
Okay.
And those props need to be wrapped in some special syntax so that the JSX knows I don't actually want the letters PROPS to show up. I want their names to show up.
So I think I did it right, but so tell me again where these curly braces right next to where you have highlighted. What was that prior?
This,
Yeah, what was that prior to?
you can ignore that. Prettier tried to be overly helpful there.
Okay. Okay.
Christy, you want to share your screen and talk us through how you made it work?
I can attempt to.
Go for it.
Okay, let's see. So what I did was I went here and I added props, but I also added student name.
Yep.
And then I came, excuse me, I came up with this.
Beautiful. And so now, if we wanted to say, hey, we're going to change the students that Ariel has, and we're going to say Christy is one of Ariel's students, where can we make that change?
Right here.
Yep.
I was going to do this earlier too.
And so now we've got that reusable teacher component that we can use over and over and over again. But we don't need to copy and paste that div with those two p tags over and over. We can just reuse that section of code by passing in the props with the different data.
All right, let's see. But we command S, right? And
Yep.
then voila, magic.
And so now, if for whatever reason you said, oh, I don't want all of the, I don't want students to be bold anymore, we could modify one line of code. And by doing that, now the students for every single teacher is going to get automatically updated.
So I would change this to a span.
Yep.
All right, let's see.
You got a span there.
And
boom.
Okay.
So it's important to take a step back here and say, why are we learning this, right? Because you could argue, I already know HTML and I already know JavaScript. This is dumb. Why are we doing it? Well, we haven't covered all the features of React yet, but one of the major benefits of React is that we can set up reusable components, right? So this is something that we run into all the time. Hey, I've got 5 of these things that I want to show up on the screen. In regular HTML, we would have to copy and paste them 5 times. But with React, what we're able to do is say, hey, this is what a teacher looks like. And when we have multiple teachers that we want to show up on the screen, we can just reuse that teacher component and we're good to go. Christy, the only thing that you can improve on there is on 11, 16, and 21, you've got a student that you don't need.
Okay.
I think you were probably on the right track to use a student prop, and then you forgot about that one in there.
I don't know what I was doing.
That looks great now.
Why is this odd? Why is this oddly here?
Because Christy, Shantina, and Stephanie are just the right number of characters longer in order to make it to go down onto the next line.
Oh, okay.
Max, did you see Zach's question?
I certainly did not. How would I put a break between each pairing of the student and teacher? So we've got a couple options there. That's a really good question. What we're able to do is, because this div is getting repeated for all of them, what we could actually do is add a style tag on here and say, hey, add some margin to the bottom of it of like maybe 20 pixels. And then also maybe add a border of 1 px solid gray. And now we've got a nice border around all of them and a little margin between them. And because we were able to do that on the style of the component, that means that that style automatically got applied to all 3 teachers. Or, I mean, I guess you could not get fancy and just put a BR tag in here, and then it would put that space in. All right, we got 5 votes in. I don't know that we're gonna get.
So wait a minute. So you just put CS style on the component.
On just a div. It's in the component. Teacher, this whole thing is the component.
Uh-huh.
So
and you just put the style on the div, which was the word teacher.
Yep.
Okay.
And yes, the syntax is a little different because again, we're using an object instead of a string. And because of that, we're camel casing any of the words that we're using.
So this is like what Ryan did the other day where he had JavaScript, HTML, and CSS all in one file. Like we're not going back to like HTML, CSS. Now we're combining all 3.
But it's important to separate that out and say, okay, anything up here, this function app, that's coming from JavaScript, right? We don't have functions in HTML.
Right.
And then we're saying, okay, return. Now, whatever is coming between our returns, this is all, for the most part, HTML, but it's a little different because JSX has a little variant in it, right? JSX is saying, hey, I can use my own components. I can define my own property names to whatever I want to be, my own props. And I can use objects to style things. And so that is where I go, all right, this is for the most part CSS, just a little different, right? It's just, we're going to use an object instead, and we're going to camel case the names instead of using a dash. But for the most part, any CSS property that you put in here is going to work as regular CSS. And we know that because we can come over here and actually use the inspect tool and see, hey, it's adding that style in exactly where I want it to be added.
So because div style, wait, go back because you made, now I can't see.
No, sorry.
Because div style has margin, colon 20p, I can't really see, but so because of all of the things that are in there, that's making that's an object.
It's an object over here when we code it out, but React automatically converts that to the CSS that we know and love in the browser.
So it's an object in React or?
Yes, in JSX, in React.
Okay, because I'm thinking of another object. I wanted to clarify that. Okay.
Object is key value pairs. Key value. Just like our props is an object.
So it's the same object from before where we had like something and then the colon.
Yep. If we wanted to, we could come up here and say const teacher styling, and we make that an object. And in that object, we put all of our things in it that we want. And then down here, we can say teacher styling. This is an object. We're in regular JavaScript. Console.log, I don't know what gets more JavaScript-y than console.log. But right here, we make an object. And then we take that object and pass it in to the style. And we know this is working because if I change something here and take a look, it's updating.
But, okay, so normally we'd be in CSS and we'd say, we'd either use a class or, and then we do the curly braces, and then we'd have 2 lines, like we say, background color, green, border, 1px. So that's the same, it's the same thing, but it's positioned differently on the screen.
And we can do that. We can still come in here and instead of class, we have to use class name. But we can
Right.
say teacher. And then we can go to our app.css and target the teacher and say, hey, I want to make the font size in the teacher 72 point.
Okay,
And now we've got things in the app.css and we also have them styling from here.
okay.
We
Okay.
can do both.
I guess it just kind of threw me off when I saw basically CSS spread out over a line and you called it an object. So that's where, okay.
It's an object only in JS apps. Normally in regular HTML, we can use this style tag and then we can add in that string, right? With the dashes and the colons and all of that stuff. But the major difference in JS apps is that the style takes an object instead of a string. And the
Okay.
way we set up that object is to use the CSS property as the key, just camel cased, and then the value is whatever the CSS value would be. So we could go in here and say, okay, font size 24. We're going to come in here and say, hey, font size is now going to be 48. Now it gets bigger.
See, when it went down, when it wrapped around, it looks like an object from like the other objects.
Oh,
that
yeah.
we-
Yeah. I mean, it's still an object. It's just, you know, the line wrapping.
Right, okay. Okay,
But either way is still a valid object.
okay.
Okay, I've only got 5 of you in, so we need to take a breather here and say, where are we lost? We can't move on to events and state and other React magic until we understand props and passing data in and reusing components. Are there any terms that we're using that you don't get? Is there any part of this code where you just don't understand what that character is doing? Where are we at here? I need some engagement from you guys. If you want to keep it anonymous, you can send it to Ariel and Ariel can forward it on to me, or she can read the question aloud. Ariel's our TA this week, by the way. How are we feeling about React? We've got another 2 weeks of this. I don't want to lose you now. And so asking the questions doesn't matter if you're super far behind, doesn't matter if you think it's a dumb question. This is the time now. I'm getting the vibes that we might need a little help here. So shout out your questions. Okay. I'm going to move on to the next concept. So in our app, we have what we can do is we can add a button. And we're just going to call this, we're going to reuse the same file, and we're going to say number of times the button was clicked. 0. And then we're going to add a button. And our button is going to say, click me. So I come over and I see number of times the button was clicked, 0, click me. Okay, but React is a little different. You know how we had an on click before? Well, we can still use that same on click method, and we're going to say on click. And because we're in JSX, we're going to camel case the C. So in your old school JavaScript, it would be a lowercase c. But in React, we camel case anything that we have the chance to. So we're going to camel case on click, and we're going to say button clicked. Okay, well, we come over to our React, and before we can even click the button, React's like, what the hell is button clicked? I don't know where that is. Okay, so instead, now we've got this weird predicament. We've got HTML down here, but we've got JavaScript up here. Normally, we would take our on click and we would go shove it in our script.js. But we don't have a script.js. So anything before this return, hey, this is all JavaScript. So wouldn't it be cool if I could say const button clicked is going to be some function. And that function is going to console log, oh no, it's been clicked. Well, this looks like JavaScript, and this looks like HTML, and this isn't yelling at me. So I can come over here and look in my console, and when I click the button, oh no, it's been clicked. Okay, let's break that down. So we define some arrow function up here, and we call it button clicked. And we tell it, hey, when the button is clicked, run anything between this curly brace and this curly brace, right? We're saying that block of code. But none of that happens until an event happens. What's the event? It's the on click. That on click is the same on click that we use in regular HTML and regular JavaScript. The only difference is that capital C right here. Okay, now what do we want to happen in that? Well, remember how we use our special curly braces here, down here, to say, hey, we're going to send you some JavaScript-y thing. We don't want you to actually put the words props out teacher name in there. We're going to use these curly braces, and those curly braces are going to tell React, hey, there's some special JavaScript-y thing coming your way. Well, the same goes for up here. What we do is we add in our button clicked. Well, that's our JavaScript-y thing. And what that's doing is it's saying when this on click happens, go up to here and make this code run. Now, how can we do that? Because it's before this return, anything in this section is going to be good old-fashioned JavaScript. Okay, pausing here. Everyone, go add a button to your code and make it, instead of console logging, make it alert something that says button clicked. most important thing here is understanding the flow, right? Understanding, hey, anything coming before my return, anything up here is going to be all my JavaScript stuff. And anything beneath this return in here is going to be my HTML. Unless, always an if, unless we stumble on one of these curly braces inside of our code. And then JSX is saying, ooh, we're going to marry some HTML and CSS together. We're going to stop and figure out whatever is in those parentheses, go look up here at our JavaScript to go find it. And then when this on click happens, it's going to follow through the button click and come all the way in to this console log. Anyone needs help, go ahead and raise your hand or let me know and share, and you can share your screen.
Can you scroll down? So I know you said that function was JavaScript, return was HTML, but down where it says new component for teacher, you didn't put anything
Nope.
down. Okay.
Everything that I modified is on the screen. The button here, we have to add it first, make the on click happen, and then we've got to tell it, hey, what happens when that button is clicked? That's up here. So we added the new button here. We told it, hey, that button text is going to say click me, straight up HTML. And when the on click happens, right, that's the same on click that we use in tic-tac-toe. That's the same on click whenever we want to hook our JavaScript in. But instead of having to use document.getElement by ID and using the whole document object model and getting inner HTML working, we don't have to do any of that BS. We're able to say, hey, on click, and now we're going to add in these curly braces and say, hey, JSX, we're sending you something Reacty. We're sending you something JavaScripty. Now we're going to take this button clicked here, and we're going to come outside of all of our HTML, and we're going to define button clicked as a new function up here. And now, because it's in these curly braces, JSX knows this button clicked is this button clicked up here. So when that button, when it is on clicked, go to the button clicked up here and go run whatever code is in here.
Okay.
All right, so we're done here for the night. I'm going to stick around in case anyone has questions. Tomorrow we'll get into state and a couple other concepts. Also going to find some resources for React, and I'm going to send them your way as a homework assignment that won't be due until the weekend. But we'll stick around for the next 10 minutes, and then I'll also have that homework assignment up by tomorrow morning.
Is the React on free code camp good or no?
Depends who you ask.
Uh-oh.
Ariel is not a fan of it. I am not a fan of it because it uses class-based components instead of functional components. And I'm worried that that's going to cause some headache between the newer way, which is what we're teaching, and the older way, which is what the free code camp curriculum uses. So if you have been going in free code camp and you really like it and you would like to go into the React section, I'm not going to stop you from doing that, but I need to spend a couple minutes looking at what the options are before I assign it as homework.
Oh. What?
So
yeah, I don't hate it, but it does get into state and stateless. And if you guys don't know what that is, then it gets confusing trying to pull the components the right way because they use some of the words that we haven't hit yet. But it is, if you go 1 through 7 is just HTTP, or I'm sorry, HTML, And then 7 through 19 is covering all of this stuff from tonight for props and components. So even if you look at it and figure, okay, I definitely don't understand that, that gives you more to come in with on class tomorrow that you can bring up, you don't know. So.
I can definitely share the code, Chaz. Sorry. And remember that feedback form, you don't have to wait until yes, Nicole, that was free code camp that Ariel was describing. And you don't have to wait until the end of the week to fill out the feedback form, right? So that is how I know how to do better tomorrow. So feel free to fill that out. Ariel, can you paste that into the Zoom chat and the live stream? It's always in Canvas. So if you go to Canvas and under general resources up here at the top, here's my one-on-one link. Here is the schedule that I update every night with the YouTube links and the name of tonight's class and the outline and all that good stuff. But the daily feedback form is right here. So definitely fill that out. You can be completely anonymous when you do fill that out. Anonymously, we have literally no way of knowing who submitted the form, and it's truly anonymous. But give us a little feedback there. So I'm getting the sense, hey, maybe it's not sinking in the way we want it to, or maybe we lost a couple people along the way. So if we know where we lost you, it's going to be much easier to get you back on track. I'm going to stick around for the next 8 minutes. Happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, you're welcome to get out of here.
I have a question.
Yeah, go for
it. So what if I wanted to cause the 0 to increase by 1 every time it was clicked?
We're going to start there tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Oh, cliffhanger.
It is totally a cliffhanger because it's another concept and a really important one in React. And I don't want to lose anyone on state, because you have to truly understand how state is working, how hooks are working, all of that stuff. So we're going to start there tomorrow. Chaz, you are welcome to install the React developer tools. That is certainly helpful if you are going to be spending a lot of time in React. However, we won't be using them or covering them in class. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with installing those dev tools. Just make sure that you get the official one from Facebook, because I do know that there are several React developer tools out there.
Yeah. See, repeats there.
Okay.
Okay, right. So that's why I didn't call them. Those are the two that came out.
You have a question, Wayne, or need any help?
Wayne, you're muted. I'm sorry.
Hold on, Wayne. I'll make it show up for you.
So that's
Yep, that's it. You're good to go.
Can you just look at this part real quick?
Yeah, so you just have some code duplicated. So you don't need the student. So go ahead and take out that functional component entirely. And then you've got teachers and students duplicated here. You have it twice. So go ahead and take out one of them. Yep. And then right here, you want it to use the prop instead of having the students. Oh no, I'm sorry, right here. You want it to say the student prop instead of the names there.
You mind? Yep. Thanks. Sorry.
No problem. So, yep, and then in there, you're gonna say, how do we get teacher name? Look at how we get teacher name on 29. We want to get the student name the same way. But we have to be careful, scroll up. Oh, Command Z. Scroll up a little bit. We have to use whatever we use right here has to match down in here.
Okay. Oh yeah, what am I doing?
Oh, you deleted a tag on your P. There you go. All right, now let's take a look. There you go.
Thank you.
So take a minute and read through that code, right? And make sure you understand the whole flow, make sure you understand why it's student name and all of that good stuff.
No, I can do it. She didn't give me the pack.
Other questions for this evening?
And guys, I have open office hours this week. If anybody needs it, my schedule's a little crazy the next couple of weeks, but if you PM me in Slack first, I can definitely set something aside if you need to go over it or you just want definitions or whatever.
Okay, that's good to know. I feel like I understand, so I've been worried. I'm worried that I understand. So I'm like feeling nervous, like the ball's gonna drop and something's gonna be like, nope, you got it all wrong.